Hey everyone, welcome to this week's show. I am your host, your champion, and your commissioner, the Ramrod Empire. With me this week, I have Kyle. He's not his twin brother here. He's representing his brother on the show, former GM of Team Rocket, and everyone's favorite league bottom, TBT.
It's power bomb to you, champion.
No power in that bottom, buddy. I'm surprised
Totally
you're
big
on last
difference.
though, which is great for you. No golden cock, probably.
But it's still touch and go, it looks like. It's gonna be touch and go into the end, I think.
Yeah, I have faith in you that you won't finish bottom. So,
Wow.
um, let's get into some results from last week. I know it's been a couple weeks, so they're not really fresh in everyone's mind. We had a nice Four Nations tournament in the middle that kind of made us forget about the league for 2 weeks. But let's kind of get into this. Last we had some action here. Team Ramrod, the Ramrod Empire, defeated Patch You Ready to Rumble 11-3. Kyle, what happened here?
This is a one-sided ass kicking. Um, Austin Matthews with 5 assists. You had Clayton Keller, 17 shots on goal. Um, just across the board, just complete and total domination. Um, this like the Four Nations final, and they they left the guy, the best player in the world, open in the slot in overtime. You
Yeah, I
know,
didn't do that.
Uh, who would do that? Who would do that?
Matthews.
Yeah.
For the
Awesome.
glory of Team Ramrod. Travis, anything to say on this matchup?
Yeah, well, you found your scoring for the first time, it feels like, in a while, and your goaltending's been pretty steady for the most part. And Nick and O'Brien hasn't had goaltending all year. So yeah, it was just more of the same old, right? Your team finally started to score. His goaltending was typically not going to beat many goaltenders, so
My offense has been my weak point all season, which is weird to say. It's been very inconsistent. Luckily, it shows up when on the weeks my goaltending doesn't, but I'd like to have it all rolling at once. But I'm still sitting in third place. I'm happy with that. What's Nick here at now? Fell down to 10th. So, he's got some work to do. I know he was trying to sell after that, and failed because his prices are unrealistic from what I hear. So.
Well, I mean, most everybody has already moved players, and there's not much out on the market right now. And I, Nick has a pretty easy schedule in the final 3 weeks, but he is now on a 5 game losing streak, which is probably why he fell into despair.
As you should. You gotta turn your shit around, bud. You ever want to compete? I thought you were gonna make the playoffs and lose me in the first round. You're lucky if you make it.
I thought he was almost locked, in all honesty, like 6 weeks ago. But
Things can change. We got Mark here. You wish you were this tight in 13th. Beating Sean, ensuring that he stays at the bottom. I love this. Travis, what did you think of this matchup?
oh man, Sean had like 10 total points, 1 PP. He haven't had 31 blocks. He wasn't even grinding, and his goaltending was mediocre. And because Sean usually has really good goaltending, um, but yeah, it was just really like mediocre versus a bottom. But yeah, Charlie Brown's, if he had good goaltending, like he normally does, it's a lot closer than it looks. But he just has no offense right now since he emptied the cupboards.
They're empty. They're bare. Kyle, what do you got to add?
Yeah, Mark put up decent stats across the board, and decent stats are enough to take down the last place team.
Yeah. Mark feasting on these bottom teams here. Um, the opposite of Kyle, of Lyle. Uh, feast on the bottom teams. But we'll get to that eventually here. We'll talk about his team later. But big win for Mark. Um, great loss for Sean. I'm happy about it. Um, yeah. Don't try the beef. Sitting in fourth place, knocking Nick down to fifth, taking him down 7-6. Kyle, what happened here?
Yeah, this is a tight matchup. Dre took the 4 wins, but Daltrey had the goaling stats pretty handily. Um, Dre's players showed up, but Daltrey you got a big assist, 28 assists. That's a good week. Uh, I think what lost it for Dre here is 15 goals and only one game-winning goal. And in a matchup that's this tight, 7-6, you need those game winners. And Daltrey with his 7 goals got 2 game winners. And I think that's really the story here is that a little bit of luck for Daltrey got him the week.
Well, he is a good luck ginger. Travis, anything to add?
Yeah, the 7 hits are weird for Nick too, because Nick usually grinds pretty good, but Daltrey had 50, and just mediocre goaltending on Nick, which is like why you'll see some of the trades Nick made this week, or I guess last week. Yeah, because you're gonna have a hard time winning any weeks with an 889, but yeah, just
I
those game
feel
winners suck, but
I feel like this is why Nick went out and made the moves he did, um, to kind of fill in the holes on his team, which any good GM will do. They'll go out and they'll fill the holes on their team to try and make them more balanced, right? But yeah, we'll talk about that later on. But big win for Daltrey, pretty much ensuring himself a playoff spot at this point. Probably unlikely that he drops out. Not impossible, but unlikely. Everyone loves Raymond. Sitting in eighth, still holding on. This loss really set him on a selling mode, where Nick was circling like a vulture and picked apart his team. Braden with the win, keeping himself in first place. Travis, what happened here?
yeah, like super tight offensively, right? Like same goals, one assist different. Braden was like 7 bet less plus minus, same PIMs, only one power point different. Braden had a short-handed point, still lost that by 2. Like they were just tight almost in every way, again, except for goaltending. Um, but yeah, like that's just a super tight week for the forwards. Like they went like head to head, and I don't even know how Braden pulls this out just by nothing. But yeah, I think Braden. No, honestly, I think Braden's like going to be the odd man out of the top 8. I think his team's the weakest, and this kind of shows you that like you're going up against Derek, who has not been consistent, and he's even struggling to pull out those wins. But yeah, it's a super tight week, and it really just came down to like a few shots, an assist, a game-winning goal, or else it goes the other way.
Kyle, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, Braden got back into the winning column this week, but this was not a great week for Braden at all. This is not the way he wants his team competing going into the playoffs. He's going to eat it alive in the playoffs as his team performs like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I've been saying that forever. I think his team is performing way better than they actually are on paper. Um, But this kind of frustrates me is Derek puts up he competes with the top team in the league, standing wise, and says, I'm going to sell because I can't make the playoffs. You're in a playoff spot. You should be, in my opinion, if you're in a playoff spot, you should be trying to at least stay neutral with trades. Don't sell and go for it. You just want to let that $600 slip out of your hands when you have a chance at it. Like
That's a culture issue in the league, though, right? The last few years of like anyone who's in like that 7, 8, 9 spot, they typically always just like, oh, I'm not good enough, and we all kind of, I'm victim of that too, obviously, because we always know I sell, but yeah, I think that's just a culture issue in the league. Where this year it's been more parity there, so you think people would want to do the things you got to do, but again, it's going to come down to trades. There's certain teams in that 8, 9, 10 spot where if you just made some fucking trades or you weren't just so stubborn, you're probably in the playoffs versus not in the playoffs. But that's just my
And we'll
Travis
get to
2
that
cents.
after. We're going to talk about the state of trade. Travis
Daily
has been
trade, baby.
he's been anxious to talk about this for weeks, if not months. Uh, everyone knows Travis loves the deal, and he's pretty much talked to every GM, so he's has a good point of view on it. I would say he has a good feel for what's actually going on with trade talks in the league. Mentally bedarded, taking a loss. Lyle finally beating a bottom team. Kyle, what happened here?
Yeah, I had a good week, but it was a lot closer than I would have liked. And for once, I pulled off a Sunday victory because I lost on a lot of Sundays this year, and this was probably my first Sunday victory. I slid in 2 spots, the shots on goal on the Sunday. I took the lead on that, and then I tied that plus minus. I had a good week. Kyle had a good week too, especially his goaltending. I couldn't compete with that, but I was happy to pull off the win and stay in the race here.
Anything to add, Travis?
I think Bergeron had lost this except for that empty netter by Sorelli, right? This is the week where the last game was a Sorelli empty netter, which gave you goals and plus minus
Yeah,
times.
it was the goals. Yeah, I got lucky. End of day Sunday, Sorelli pulled it off for me.
Yeah, you were dead. I think that was literally the last game before the break, and Sorelli got empty netter, which gave you goals, and then tied you in plus, or you actually had lost. Or you had a tie, sorry, because that's 2 stats.
Would have been a tie. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, someone fighting for playoffs, if you're tying Bedard, buddy. But yeah, no. You can't blame, like, Burge had good goaltending, a 916, league average is like a 909, 907. But Plum's had a 946, and he's had 4 goalies on the IR the whole season. Burge pulled it out, but it's probably more his favor if you averaged out like Plum's goalie stats all year long versus like the one impeccable week he has. Burge handles them pretty good.
Well, we proved who's the better Kyle, I guess. Tough luck for Bedard. Hopefully he has some soul searching there this off season and figures out what he wants to do with his team. Um, and good for Kyle staying in the playoff race. Or for Lyle.
Plums is actually doing a pretty good job as keepers because I offered that bastard everything for Bedard, and he refuses to sell the core. He knows that he bought early on some goalies that didn't work out, and he didn't give away Demko or give away like Bedard because he got the offer. So it's not his year, but it's more of an injury thing versus like because like I would have sold Bedard off like for sure for what I offered, but no,
I think
like
it's too
he's
early to
keeping his
give up
keepers
on Bedard personally. Like too early. Unless you get something that's worthwhile, right? Like if something that completely reshapes your foundation, maybe. But I think you might make the same mistake that Kyle made a few years ago where he drops McKinnon and then McKinnon just takes off.
Well, Bedard is still at like one of the fastest pace to 100 points, though. Like it's not a sexy 100 points because the team is just so bad. But
Yeah,
he's actually not on a bad pace. It's just when you're number one overall, you're a generational player. They expect you to be like carrying Chicago to the playoffs and stuff, and that's just not. But Bedard's been fine. Like
that's
he's
not
been perfectly fine.
realistic. It's not
Yeah,
realistic.
not at all.
Casey sitting in ninth place, looking out
Boy,
for the playoff spot after losing to Domo, jumping into seventh. I think we went with Kyle last time. So Travis, what happened here?
1 second, I froze. Domo versus this is a tough loss because I feel like Domo's been in the weeds for a while. Casey's got a lot of offense, but it really hasn't been shown. Like how you plus 19 but only have 13 goals, like and 4 power play points. Like he has 31 points and 4 power play points. He has the Hughes and Bratton stuff. I think he made some trades this week, which we'll obviously talk about to fix some of the holes he has.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just his guys just don't show up consistently. Like goaltending's always been an issue with him. Like an 867, you're not winning shit with that. He couldn't even take saves. So when you lose 4 of the 5 goalie stats, you're kind of getting feasted on. But yeah, it's just his team didn't really show up.
Kyle, anything to add?
Huge win for Captain Crunch here. This win is actually devastating for me because this hurts my playoff chances. Even if I win the next 3 matches, there are scenarios, and there's a lot of good scenarios where I don't make the playoffs. And I needed Casey to win this match big. Domo had a pretty decent week, and Domo has easy matchups for the next 3 weeks, which I'm not very keen on.
Well, we'll see what he does with those easy matches, right? What's his team gonna do after the trade deadline? We know he heavily relies on trades to get his business done. So we'll see what.
Domo's trade deadline was like 6 weeks ago.
Sorry, you cut out there.
Domo's deadline was like 6 weeks ago. He hasn't had assets in. Hello?
Oh, you're
Yeah, yeah,
frozen, but I can hear you now.
yeah. So Domo hasn't had assets for like 6 weeks
Oh,
because he blew his load earlier in the season. For those who couldn't
yeah,
really hear him.
We got robotic Travis here.
Hey, his mouth is open. Just stick something in there.
yeah, like he's had literally nothing ever. Even do like his little like Sunday,
He's just very
but
asset
it's
poor.
everything's fucking lagging.
It's that New Brunswick internet, but there you go.
There, you're back.
Yeah, yeah. Basically,
We spoke too soon.
had no resources to do any trades for 6 weeks. It's because it's
Maybe
like
maybe turn your video off and we'll hear
so
you.
hard.
Yeah, we don't need to see your face. Oh, we cut the audio.
That's why the people come. People come.
There we go. Now you're moving around again.
Yeah.
You're very robotic.
I shut one of them off. We
Does
good
not
though?
does not compute.
Whatever. Just move on. Just move on.
Oh,
We're good.
I hear you a little bit now.
Just move
Uh,
on.
Corey taking a big loss to TVT. I'm going to start with Travis on this one. What happened?
Fuck's sakes. Just good goaltending. When you lose 4 to 5 goalie stats, it's hard to win a week.
Kyle, anything to add?
No, a solid week for Travis, especially goaltending pulled it out. A couple player sets, enough to put Corey away.
It's a big upset. Um, Huge for the Caucasaurus race. Gets Travis like safely out of the bottom. Um, and it's good for me. Who's chasing Corey? I think I'm 2 points behind him right now. So uh, I'm very happy with that result. Neil taking the loss to Dan. So Neil falling to 12th. Dan jumping in the 6th. This is someone who I didn't think was going to make the playoffs, but lucky for him, he gets to play all the weak teams twice, and that's a big advantage. Kyle, what happened in this match?
This was another match that was unfortunate for me because Dan is a person that I could realistically catch if I beat Casey this week. Another tight matchup. Dan dominated goaltending, while Neil dominated player stats. And unfortunately, Neil getting no goalie stats really helped Dan out.
Travis, anything to add?
Yeah, like Dan took the 4 goalie stats. He had some assists. Yeah, it's just we'll get into trade stuff too. He lost 4 goalie stats, which put you on the 8 ball, and then Neil's team just didn't do enough offensively to make up for it. Like 12 assists, couldn't catch up for the bad goalie stats essentially.
That's a rough loss for Neil. I feel like he's been on the wrong side of a lot of close matchups this year. But sometimes that happens, and you just have an off season. I still think his team is good. I just don't think he's getting the bounces, and that just happens in fantasy sports sometimes, right? So
Well, he had Kaprasov and Lozon, which are 2 elite fantasy players. Like Lozon is like le creme of grind. He's been out forever. His season's done, it looks like. And then Cap's been out forever. And Cap's it looks like Cap might be done for the season. Like that's 2 huge pieces.
yeah,
That'd be like you losing like Matthews and like Truba essentially, right? Like give or take some stats, obviously, but like that's hard to recover from.
yeah, it hurts when you're trying to make a playoff run, for sure. So I feel for him, but that's fantasy hockey, right? Everyone lives or dies by the injuries. You just never know.
That's it.
Let's take a quick look at the standings here. Oh, it's not down there this time. Take a quick look at the standings before we move on to our trade section of the show. Oh, I don't know why it's logging me out. What the hell is going on here?
Me
Fuck off.
beating Corey put a big hamper on him not winning, or Braden not winning the season though.
Here we go. Braden in first place with 28 points. Uh, Corey and myself tied at 24 points. He has a tiebreaker. He has more wins than me right now. So it's second and third. Daltrey right behind us by a point with 23 points in fourth place. Dre a little behind, 21 points in fifth. There's a nice buffer there, so it looks good for me and Daltrey to make it in. Corey and Braden already clinched. It's funny that I'm tied with Corey, but I'm not clinched because I don't have enough wins to get the tiebreaker over whoever's chasing eighth. Svech with 20 points sitting in sixth. Domo with 19 sitting in seventh. You got Raymond and Wasatch and Patches all at 18 points for 8, 9, and 10. Right behind Team Rocket is at 17 points in 11th. Then you got the rest who are pretty big stretch for them to make it. Neil, 15 points in 12th. Mark, 15 points in 13th. PVT, 10 points in 14. And you got Plums and Charlie Brown's tied at 9. But he has a tiebreaker over Sean at the moment. So Sean, where he belongs in the position of the Caucasaurus. Hopefully it ends that way. Um, Before we get into the trades, Travis, do you want to do your rant now, or do you want to wait till after we talk about the trades?
Well, it's more of I'll go with the trades and I'll kind of just
You go as we go.
bring
Hopefully, we can hear you better
who
because you cut it
produces
out
this
again.
shit kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna just take shots at people.
All right, that's fair. So let's talk about this first trade. We have You all right over there? I think he's frozen again.
Maybe turn off your video and just go audio for this so we can hear you.
Yeah, I'd rather hear you.
How do I turn this? How do I turn this off? Jesus Christ! I saw.
Oh, let's see if that works.
Am I gone? Am I
You're gone.
Got a lot better.
Yeah, I can hear you too. All right,
When did this start?
with the
The
trades,
trade days.
we're gonna look at the first one's Brock Faber for Nekis,
What day?
the 9th.
Okay.
So Faber, a 6th and an 8th going to Neil in exchange for Netches and 2 17s going to Casey. Let's start with Travis on this one. Travis, what do you think of this trade?
He fucking paid. Like Nietzsche's has cooled down. Like Neil bought him for an 8th forever ago, and he's kind of cooled off. He's in Colorado again, but like that's a steep payment for a guy who's really never been that guy. But he's in a good situation playing next to McKinnon. If you're all in, I get it, but I think he overpaid. He's going to keep him. I know for sure. I talked to him about it, but I think that's pretty steep for Nietzsche's personally.
What do you think, Kyle?
I'm going to let you and Travis talk about trades. I'm just going to listen.
Okay. I agree that I think he overpaid a little bit. That's 2 really high picks for Nietzsche's. An an 8th and maybe a later pick would have been all right by me, but a 6 and an 8 seems like a big overpayment. Good on Neil for getting that deal.
Yeah, I tried to get him for a 7th. He's like, I need to wait. And then Casey popped that in like an hour later. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not getting him.
Yeah, not with that. Like, he can't compete with that.
Yeah.
We're gonna skip this trade because it was canceled. That's because it was a ad drop and I was sleeping, so it never went through. So they both agreed to cancel it. Casey up to his shenanigans again. Soderblom, Ingram, and 2 6 going his way in exchange for George Askarov, a 17 and an 18. Travis, tell me about this one.
Well, I've been on Casey all year, but again, and this comes down to Mark's complaint too. I send some shitty trades sometimes, for sure. We all do. But I kept things with Casey very clear, and it's like, if you feel like you're going to stick with one goalie, I'm your guy. I have the resources. And then Casey messaged me, "Hey, I'm thinking about moving off Maskarov. I just need a good pick and then some serviceable goalies." And Soderblom and Ingram are meh, but they're not NA like Casey's problem for 2 years. And I was at a 6 and 7, and he's like, "Oh, picks." So I just upgraded. I gave him two sixes, and he accepted it. I think it's good. I had two GMs tell me it's a terrible trade. I don't think they understand what I'm going through this year, what I'm looking to do. But yeah, I think I got a good deal on it. It's a lot, but like if you're looking for the future, like who are you looking at besides Askarov if you're looking to the future? Like maybe I'm missing that one, but I paid a lot, but I think it's a decent deal. But I had a couple of people telling me that it's awful.
Well, I won't ask for your sources, but I'm going to disagree. I think it's a good deal. Yes, you might have overpaid based on what he's done.
Yeah.
But again, this is a guy who's the top goalie prospect in the league. If he's even close to what they expect him to be, he's going to be a solid starting goalie. And are you going to find that in the draft? Maybe an aging one, but not one of his caliber at his age. I do know why. I understand why Mark's upset. Mark told me the offer he made, and it was actually a really good offer. Um, and he was also on Casey often about it. My one complaint about this trade, it's not against you. You did great on this deal. Is that when you have an asset like that you know multiple GMs are interested in, you got to bring that to the chat and say, "I'm listening to offers on this guy."
But I think it's just like how because Casey went through his notes. He's like, yeah, he asked for him. He offered me the two Maple Leaf goals, which aren't bad. You're trying to win, but and he wanted a six and Askarov, and it's like that's not a trade if you actually want to get him. So like nothing against Mark, but like we all know how fucking maddening it is
Oh,
to
I
get
understood that the
terrible trade
sixth was
offers.
going with the Toronto goalies, to be fair.
No, to my understanding was he wanted Askarov in a six.
Oh, well, that's a reach.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of, and again, Mark. I think when Mark jokes a lot, and we all know there's trade value issues, but I think the main issue I think that happened with Mitchkov too was that like you're fucking annoying and it's disrespectful. We talked about this, and I think that's kind of why Casey reached out to me because again, I keep things playful. I send some pretty ridiculous offers sometimes, but I think at the end of the day, you're going to go to the person who doesn't annoy the shit out of you versus having to have a tough conversation, fucking fighting over like an extra pick or whatever. If
This
that
is
makes
where
sense.
GM relationships come in, right?
Well, that's it. Like, yes, you obviously want to get the better deal, but at the end of the day, like, you can't just trade rape everybody. You got to lose some trades or pay for what you want to get.
That's it. Sometimes you got to pay a little more knowing that it's going to cost you a little more. You have to be willing to pay that to win a championship, which a lot of these GMs don't really know what that's about.
Or sell every other year. You know, either or.
Braden getting involved in the trades, picking up Hyman and a 17th from Neil in exchange for Barbashev and an 8th. What do you think of this one?
Well, I sold Hyman off before the year started for a six, and I broke the league, as people told me. Um, um, yeah, it's an okay trade. Like Hyman seemed to be heating up, but like that whole Edmonton team's kind of been a muck. So I think Hyman for an eight's a good deal for a playoff push because he hasn't really performed, but a guy that hit 50 goals last year can easily heat up for the last few weeks of the season.
I think as well, there's not a lot left out there pick wise. I don't know if Neil could have got better than that. So I think he did a good job recuperating some assets for a guy that he had most of the year, and it just didn't work for his team. So
Yeah,
move him out. And Barbashev is flippable as well. So who knows what he does there?
yeah. That's the issue right now with the trade. Like everyone's trying to move shit, but the top like 8 teams are fucking packed tight with what they have. They don't have picks to start with, and they are actually pretty solid 1 through 16 or whatever the players are on the roster. Like it's everyone is pretty set for their pushes at the moment. It looks like.
That's it. So it's hard to make moves, right? Um, Casey again though makes another move, picking up Braden Shen, a 16 and 17 in exchange for Wright, a 10 and an 11 from Neil. What do you think of this one?
I'm not the biggest fan of Braden Chen, but he has 33 points. I don't know what he's got for hits because it doesn't show me right
He
here.
hits enough.
He's got what 147 hits, so he's averaging about just over half a point a game
He
and
grinds.
like 3 hits a game. That's not bad. Like it's a little pricey, but again, you're making a playoff push. It's trading 2 mid-round picks isn't a bad trade at all. I don't think.
I think personally, a 10th should have been enough to get him. Adding an 11th in, it's overpayment in my opinion.
Yes, it's a bit
Um,
steep for sure. But if it's the guy you need, it's
yeah,
not the end of the world. Like there's no sevens or eights in there, but it's definitely more than what you need to pay for sure. I agree there for sure.
but I feel like Casey overpays a lot of his deals because he doesn't have those relationships. He doesn't talk to anyone. And when you don't talk to anyone, you're just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. And sometimes you're overpaying when you do that. So good on Neil though for getting two good pickup grades for a guy that probably should have only been worth one of those, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think yeah, a 10 and a 13 or something is probably more accurate. But like, yeah, no, it's too much. But it's a good guy to get. He gives you some points. He gets you
Yeah,
hits. It's not a terrible trade. It's just too much. But if you want to win, you got to pay.
yeah. TBT. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong trade. Braden Byweek active again, picking up Bennett and two 18s to Domo in exchange for Pajot and two 11s. What do you think of this one?
Well, this just makes the break to me. Sam Bennett. I got to look at the stats again because Sam's been a lot cooler than he was before. He is only center. Bennett was cheaper because who cares? 16 and 17s versus 18s, no one cares. So he's technically cheaper for the cost, and he's probably better in every way. So it's a great trade. If I think Braden Shen's a good deal, I got to think Sam Bennett's a bargain. And I'm pretty sure Domo paid a premium for Bennett. So I don't really understand, but
I think he took a loss overall on the Bennett deals. Um, but again, good job getting some assets that he's gonna cycle through. Uh,
he's competing for the playoffs.
yeah. Well, is he though? Like he's in a playoff spot, but that's not his mindset. Is that I got to keep assets for the playoffs? I got to keep moving for draft picks to try and outman game people, and then hopefully I land in a playoff spot. But again, Braden stacking up a little bit, picking up Bennett and Hyman. So we'll see if that benefits him.
No, it's a good trade
TBT.
for. Yep,
Oh, is this a Sunday trade?
that's
Spurgeon
an
and
ad drop.
Ferrari?
I think.
Yeah, it's at drops.
That
Yeah.
drops. Yeah, we don't care about that shit. Uh, Everyone loves Raymond. This is a big one, actually. Everyone loves Raymond. Getting Yossi, Line, a sixth and a seventh in exchange for Uyghur, Wilson, a 17 and an 18. What about this one?
This is like the epitome of what's wrong with the league. Let's call it like no, not many people are going to pay a 6 and a 7 for Uyghur and Wilson, even though they are fantasy gold. But again, if you want to win, you have to pay. Like you can't, you're not going to get a nickel and dime for good guys. Nick knows he needed grit. It's been kind of an issue for him all year. So he ponied up like a 6 and a 7. They're good players, but like a 6 and 7 is steep. But I think it's an overpayment. But for what Nick needed, is perfect.
My understanding is that I believe he's keeping Wilson going forward.
That's the point trade exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So that was my understanding, is that he plans on keeping Wilson. So if you're going to give a sixth away for Wilson, you're probably not finding Wilson in the first round. At least not with my sixth.
Yeah.
You might find him early, but he's not going to last all the way to the late first round, right? So he adds a lot of grit. He's been back. His scoring touch has been back. So I think it's a good trade for both teams. Um, with the exception of that, I don't think Derek should have been selling. But if he is, then this is good assets coming back.
Allmark got hurt forever ago, and I was talking because I was trying to move Montembeau, and Derek's like, I don't need a goalie that bad. And he literally, if you look at his stats, he loses like 4 weeks because the goaltending is that bad. Where if he had just simply addressed the issue at hand, he's probably still in the playoffs, or he would be like higher up. But because he just, again, I think I like Derek, but I think he's very difficult to trade with. He refused to address, and I'm not saying Montembeau is the resolution, but you can go find it. He had picks. he just refused to address the issues, and he lost like 4 weeks in a row, which puts you in that 7, 9, 10, 8 area where you're just like, well, I feel doomed now. I have to trade off. Where he could have avoided that by just, again, ponying up and buying some sort of goalie because they are available, and now he's stuck selling. But
I feel like that's part of like what the issue is too with the trade culture in the league. A lot of teams, yes, draft picks are really valuable, but what's more valuable, having picks in next year's draft or just making deals to compete every year if you can compete? When you have a good team, you need to jump on that. You don't know when the next time you'll have a good team is. Derek hasn't been relevant since 2016-17. When's the next time you're gonna have a team like this? You needed to take advantage of that and spend a little bit, invest in them, so that you can compete. I believe he could have been dangerous had he actually took the initiative a few weeks back and
yeah,
fixed the holes on his roster. But instead, he just, you know, was
cheap.
passive and let it fall apart.
Well, that's it. And again, I get too like it's intimidating too to move those kind of picks, right? Because like fuck, like not having a 6 next year. But like in all honesty, depending on the GM, like that 7 to like 9 range, it's a fucking crapshoot. Because like we're not all very good drafters in here, so like you think you're giving up a good asset, but realistically, like you're not that far off between like a 7 and a 9. It's to me that's all perspective when you're drafting.
Now,
But
we have less than a minute left in this first part. But before we do, I just want to touch base on like who fucking cares what you have next year when you're competing this year?
that's
That's
it.
that's my mindset. Is yes, I want to be set up for next year if I can be, but my priority is always the current year. Like, what can I do this year? Is my team good enough? Can I make improvements to make them really competitive and possibly make a run? Well, then that's what I'm going to focus on and not be like, well, I don't want to compete this year because it might cost me next year. Well, next year your team might be even worse. But anyway, we're going to lose this, so let's stop it here, and we will be back for part two.